more on this, let's speak to James Dorsey in Singapore. He's an adjunct senior fellow at the Rajaratnam School of International Studies. James, always good to speak to you. Now, publicly, Washington says it wants a ceasefire, that it's close to securing one. But then when we hear from Netanyahu, the deal seems very far away. What does this tell us about this apparent pressure Netanyahu's getting from the United States?
Well, there's no doubt that the United States wants to see a ceasefire. The question is whether it's willing to do what it will take to get Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire. I think we need to keep in mind two things. First of all, the ceasefire negotiations are not simply about a ceasefire. They are about who will control Gaza after the guns fall silent. There's no plan in place for an administration of Gaza once the war ends. And Netanyahu clearly wants to keep control, at least security control, of the Strip. The second issue is that the negotiations are essentially follow a principle that Henry Kissinger applied 50 years ago, which was you try to resolve the smaller, more easier issues first in the hope, often false hope, that that will make solving the more complex issues easier. And the second issue in the ceasefire negotiations is that the United States is not willing so far to put its money where its mouth is. With other words, you have the protests in Israel that do apply pressure on Netanyahu, but not enough pressure to force him to change course or resign. And it's going to be that combination of U.S. pressure and domestic pressure that would force Netanyahu's hand, but that's not coming together.
What could the U.S. do? You said the U.S., if they really wanted this to end, they could take action. But what kind of action would put that ultimate pressure on Netanyahu?
I mean, there are all kinds of things that the U.S. could do. There's been some speculation that the U.S. may pull out some forces out of the Middle East that were brought in to counter a potential Iranian strike. The message being that that Israel should not take U.S. Support for granted. There are steps that the United States could do, like what Britain did, in terms of a partial suspension of arms sales, which really, if even if it were minor, would have a tremendous impact because it would really send a message. The problem, of course, is for the Biden administration is that it's 2 months out to a presidential election in the United States, and it's trying to balance two constituencies, one that favors the Israeli position and one that favors the Palestinian position. With other words, one that favors the war and one that favors a ceasefire. And those are two mutually exclusive communities in a sense. And it's very tough on the administration to walk a fine line between them.
Yeah, it certainly is. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on what will happen in the next few weeks. James Dorsey in Singapore, thank you.
Thank you for having me.